Hello, Caroline here from Spirit of Nature Art, back with another video tutorial, and this time we are going miniature with this wonderful book kit that my hubby got me for Christmas. This kit comes with enough materials and templates to make 2 different types of miniature books, and as you can see I've already had a go at making one, but now I thought we would make something a little bit spooky. So I'm going to put the link to this kit below. I'm just giving you a little quick tour of what comes in the kit. You've got some bits of leather, you've got instructions, you've got your binding thread, and also the templates to be able to cut this out. So this is from Michelle at Shelbyville, so I'll put all the links below. I know I've had a lot of requests from people to do some tutorials around my spooky books. Of course, my spooky books take forever because they are really big and complex. So I thought, well, let's make a miniature one. So one of the pieces of leather that came in my Christmas kit was black, so perfect. So I am just using the template that came in the kit and cutting using my scalpel around that template and also using it to cut the little slits in there so that we can create the kettle stitch effect that we're going to have. And as I'm going along, just getting inspired. I didn't really have a proper plan for this as I started, but as soon as I had that piece of leather in front of me, I thought, oh, do you know what? Let's get some little of these little metal corners out. And then as I was doing that, I thought, oh, actually, I kind of felt I wanted the leather to be a little bit more sturdy. So I have this amazing spooky fabric that I got from I think Dalston Mill here in the UK. I'll pop a link to them below as well. So I thought, right, I am going to just line the back of the leather with that wonderful spooky fabric. And again, no idea if this is the right way to do it. I was just using what I had around me at the time, which was some Liquitex matte medium gel. So I've just painted that onto the back, the soft kind of back side of the leather, and then placed my piece of material over the top and then put another layer over the top of that just to seal it in, and I've left that to the side now just to dry. Now in the kit comes this little template for your pieces of book page to go inside. Now on the previous one that I made, I literally just got out all my offcuts of tea dye paper and cut enough of those to make proper signatures. Now, what I wanted to do with this was use up some of my kind of scraps of this kind of grey card here. Again, I'll pop a link to this card below. Left over from making another spooky book. I thought if I'm making something spooky, I like to start with this grey base. So I've used the page template and I've cut out, and they're not all exactly the same, I have to say, because I was trying to fit around the scrap I had left, and that's fine because this is a spooky book. The idea is for it not to be exactly perfect, and also I'm going to be distressing around a lot of the edges anyway. So I've cut out vaguely the right size based on the template that Michelle puts in the kit. I've just cut out 3 to start with, and my original idea was to put them together like a little signature. That's not how I end up doing it, but you'll see that when we come to the end. So I'm just getting my scissors out, my little scissors, and I'm just literally roughing up all the edges of each of the pages there that I have cut out, and now I am inking them. So I'm starting off with Vintage Photo, and then I will go in with ground espresso, and then I'll end with just a little dab of black soot all around the edge. And that just gives that really nice kind of basis for anything that's going to be super spooky. So I quite like to have some kind of cutouts. I like being able to look through a page and see what's beyond it. So I've just used one of my dies to cut a circle out of one of the pages there. You could use a punch, a circular punch. So I've cut that out using my Sizzix Sidekick. And again, I've done the same thing with distressing the edges and inking it. And I'm just playing around with some of my stamp sets here. I kind of want something that's going to kind of overhang so that you can see it around the edge. You'll see what I mean in a second. There we go. So I know the large majority of the stamp is now on my scrap piece of paper, but what I wanted was that edging to that circle. So that's what I quite like about those clear stamps, because you've got the printed bit that on the acetate that you can hover over your project and just see what it's going to come out like. And then I've got this really spooky stamp set from Sampool, so just picking a few bits and pieces from there and just starting to spook up this little page. So bringing in, I'm using archival ink for this because I don't want any of this to move. I want that nice crisp, well, kind of crisp kind of finish to the stamping, but also I don't mind if it's not exactly perfect because again, this is a spooky book. And I'm just bringing in a couple of my little favourite Paper Artsy Mini stamps here, and just dabbing in to those 3 distress inks that I've used on the edges. Actually, that one, the Crackles, isn't a Paper Artsy Mini, that's France Papillon. It's part of one of her bigger kits, but still Paper Artsy. So now I want to create the little window that's going to go in that gap we've created. So I've just picked a bit of packaging, a bit of acetate packaging, and cut out a piece to the right size. And I'm just putting a very small amount of my high-tack glue around the edge, trying not to get too close to the edge, because then when I put my piece of acetate down, I don't want to squidge all of that glue into my nice little window. So just letting that sit underneath some stamp blocks just to properly set. And this feather has been beautifully donated by one of my ducks, Basil. So whenever the ducks are wandering around, they're always dropping a few feathers. So I pick up my favourite ones as I'm going around looking after them and hold on to them for projects like this. So I've actually sandwiched this between another piece of acetate so that it doesn't matter which side of the paper you're looking at, which side of the page you're looking at, you're going to see this feather. And added a little bit of ephemera there as well. And because that will be visible from both sides, I actually folded over that little bit of ephemera so that you are going to get that image both sides. So I'm just leaving that to dry now under those stamp blocks and coming back to the cover, which is now dry, trimming the excess fabric off. And, you know, if I'd thought that I was going to use this fabric before, what I would have done was done it before I cut it out, because now I've got to go back and go through those little slits and just kind of recut those so that they go through the fabric as well. I've got my Sizzix Luster Wax. You guys know if you've watched any of my videos by now, this is one of my favourite things to use, and just dabbing that around the edge of the book page there. And now I can add my little brass corners on, just giving them a little squeeze. So that now I've got my little spooky book cover. That can go to the side now and I can start to focus on the pages inside. So I want to cover up obviously all that little kind of acetate window thing that I've done. So I actually had this piece of paper sat behind the piece of card when I cut the die out. So it already had the circle nicely cut in it, a little bit of old book page. So I've just inked that up with the same inks that I've used everywhere else, and just starting to add a few little bits of digital ephemera. Oh, that's not digital, that's a Tim Holtz snippet, Curator snippets. So that, I love the new stamp set, the Curator snippets. I've literally just got a whole load of leftover bits of scrap paper and just kind of printed it on. I haven't even taken the stamps apart. I've just kept them on the backing and just stamped it on loads of bits of different scrapbook paper and cut them out. So I've got a huge tub of those little Curator snippets of all my favourite kind of colours, because that's the scrapbook paper that I've bought. So these other little teeny tiny bits of ephemera that I'm using are digital kits, so I'll put the link to those kits below. And this is some tea dye paper that I made using the kind of scrunchy up method. So once it's been in the tea dye, rather than leaving it out flat to dry, scrunch it up into a ball so it dries with all of those lovely nice kind of crinkles and stains caught in the crinkles. I think I have videoed the process somewhere, I just haven't uploaded it, so maybe I'll upload that video for you soon. And again, I've inked all the edges using the same colour inks, and just created a little cluster using some bits of ephemera, and also cut out that mushroom from one of my old kind of vintage nature books. quite often when I'm doing something like this, I prefer to, you can see I'm creating the cluster off the page and sticking it all together as one piece, and then add that whole piece finally to the page. So I've got exactly how I want it to be now. I will glue that on. I think when I'm working with something so small and tiny like this, maybe that's the easiest way to do it. So there we go, another page done. On to the next one. I kind of thought I'd like a belly band. So I had literally just been raiding my stash of ephemera. That was a little bit from the Tim Holtz, I think this year's Halloween release. And then I got a little bit of old book page from my stash, inked it up. I'm gonna stick that down to line the page. And I folded that little bit of ticket around from the front page, so it just kind of added a nice little extra detail. Put that belly band on. A little bit of stamping. And then this little bit of ephemera to stick behind. On to the next page. Working with something miniature like this is quite cool because it doesn't take very long to do each page. So I had this little bit of book page that I tore out of one of my nature books that's been sat there for a while because I thought it would make a really nice little kind of, you know, stamp or dangle in one of my books. So I'm just lining that on a bit of black card, just so it kind of fits with the theme, but also it means that there's a little bit of space on the back for some kind of journaling or message if you want. I've used the luster wax around the edge of that black as well. And I kind of thought, oh, that'd be quite nice just to kind of clip it on with one of those Tim Holtz clips. So I've cut another piece of that tea dye paper down to size, and as well as inking around the edge, what I'm doing is just folding it along the folds that are naturally there and adding a little bit of extra ink to that as well. And it just really kind of highlights those kind of crinkles and makes them really pop, which I kind of really like in a spooky book. A little bit more stamping, pop our little bit of ephemera up there using that little clip. And then here we go, just playing around, picking out another little label from this digital kit here and just adding a little bit more collage to the bottom of that page. I don't know where I got all of these bits of ephemera from. Some of them will be little bits left over from like Stamperia kits and stuff like that. They've just all ended up in my little mix pot. So on to the next page, and these really fun. This was another Christmas present, these Lavinia stamps with the bats, the hanging bats. I love them. So stamped them onto a piece of that tea dye paper. Obviously edged the tea dye paper with all of the inks, and I wanted to create a little tuck spot at the bottom. So I've just used one of the stamps from that Sam Poole set to stamp magic onto a little bit of ticket. And now just finding a couple of little bits of ephemera that will stick in that pocket without covering up my lovely bats. On to the next page. So I thought I would create a side tuck for this one. So again, just going through my stash of, I think that's a digital label. That might be a Tracie Fox one. Another piece of tea dye paper. I think probably throughout this whole project I used maybe 1.5 bits of scrap tea dye paper that were left over. Using one of those Tim Holtz Curator snippets there just to add a little label on. A little butterfly cut out of one of my nature books just to create a little bit of collage on that tuck. Sticking that piece of paper down. That's high tack glue in that little bottle. A little bit of glue along the edge of that tuck. So that I can pop a little something in like that. I've added one of those little Tim Holtz paper clips on as well. On to the next page, I thought I would do a little flap, a little flip up. So another digital kit, these little labels, I'll pop the links below, inked it up used a stamp just to add some little lines on the back, just to kind of create a little journal spot there. And then I'm going to use one of my Curator snippets to create the hinge. So you could use a scrap of paper, you could use a little bit of washi tape, but I thought, seeing as I've got all of these snippets that I've stamped, I might as well use one of those. And also then it kind of adds to, you know, where I've used it everywhere else as well. So I've just folded it in half, inked it up, and I'm gonna attach one half of it to the tag, and the other half I'll attach to the page once I've put that bit of tea dye paper on. There we go, magically on. So I'm just finding that central point, because I do want this to be mostly central. So just sticking the other half of that little hinge down. There we go, we've got a nice little flap. And now just creating a little cluster to go on that flap. So cut out this little butterfly from one of my nature books. I'm sticking it down to another little bit of ephemera from my random pot of ephemera, and then gluing that down onto the flap. I could have just left it as it was, but I thought it was a really nice pop of colour and just an extra little bit of detail. And because, you know, I never know quite when to stop, I thought I'd create another little tuck spot underneath that as well, so that when you lift it up, there's a little secret tuck spot with another little journal spot as well. So here's me just going through my tubs of random ephemera. Everything ends up in like the same pots. So I think that is a Tracie Fox digital, and possibly so is the other bit as well. So in the kit there comes this little template here where you know where to kind of punch the holes through so that you can bind it into the cover in the right place. So you can see here now I've carried on and made a whole load more pages, but they're pretty much all in the same kind of style. So I've created those little windows, I've created those little tuck spots, I've kind of added in all the little bits of ephemera for little kind of journal places. So just kind of dipping into my kind of pots of goodies and just creating little kind of collages and little tuck spots like that. That's, I think some of this is, there we go, that one is from the Tim Holtz Halloween from this year, the little books, the little stamps. So whatever you've got, raid or stash, another little belly band there. So each kind of signature has kind of follows a little kind of template. A few more of those little Lavinia stamps on there, a little cat as well as one of the bats. So here's all my signatures. Now I want to bind them into that cover. So this little template here, I put in the fold of each of those signatures and use my pokey tool just to poke a little teeny tiny hole through so that I can then bind that in. So that comes with the kit. So your holes will line up with the, thank you everybody. That was Cairo. Cairo, I just want to thank everyone for all your lovely messages about Rosco. We were devastated when we lost Rosco, and we've so desperately missed having a Bengal in the house. So that was Cairo. I'm sure you will meet him as he grows up and gets a little bit more happy around being calm around my art stuff. But as you will see there, I poked all of those holes in so that they were all in the same place in each of the signatures. And now I'm just using the bookbinding thread which came with the kit. It was bright white, which didn't kind of sit right with this project. So what I did was get my scissors luster wax out and just give it a little bit of that gold hint so that it matches everything else. And of course, because that waxed thread has already got that coating on, the gold isn't perfect. So again, it matches with the spooky book. And I am just following the instructions in Michelle's kit, which is about, threading, putting your needle in a hole, taking it out through the slit at the back and bringing it back in again so that you create that nice kind of pattern on the binding on the outside. So you start with the back page and build upwards. So each page then gets sewn in on top of the next one, going out through the holes, out through the slits that it matches with, back in, through the slit, through the hole, and you just continue that all the way down. I am not a bookbinder like Michelle, so I'm not going to try and teach you because I may not even be doing this right. But you get all of the instructions in the kit, and I'm sure there are so many different YouTube videos on how to do this by people who actually know what they're doing. So yeah, please don't necessarily follow what I'm doing. It's just my kind of way of getting the effect that I want. It's not necessarily the right way to do it, but it seemed to work, and everything came together nicely following Michelle's instructions. So thank you, Michelle, for putting some brilliant instructions in your kit. I think I've not done a bad job for my first time doing this. So here we go. You can see how all of those pages are now starting to build up. This is the front page now, the very first page in the book. Getting that in. All my book's pages attached now. And as I was just kind of doing the final knot in there, I kind of thought I was about to snip the string off, and I thought, no, I can add a little dangle that will hang down the side. So I'm snipping the one off at the bottom. I thought, here's an opportunity to add a little dangle. So I found a little cat, a little metal cat charm. So before I do the final knot on that top thread, I'm just kind of threading that on so it dangles down the side like that. How cool is that? Here we go. So here the pages all are bound into that little cover. And speaking of cover, it's time for me to bring out another one of my Christmas presents. Hubby's super good. He buys me lots of lovely things, and this is a wax seal kit. It's just a basic starter kit from Amazon, along with a couple of extra stamps. So again, I'll pop the link to this below. So I have made sure that Cairo is out of the room now because of the candle flame. And I'm just choosing a few different colours, melting the wax. I'm just pouring it onto, this is a marble coaster, so it's cold, and I don't want to seal it onto anything. I wanted to create these little kind of bits of ephemera like this and play around and see how I might use them. So here comes the Sizzix Luster Wax again, just rubbing that gently over the top of those seals so it brings out the pattern. How lovely is that? And I made them really thin. I didn't want big chunky ones because I had this idea that what I want to do is to use my crocodile to punch that through the front cover. So what I needed to make sure that the eyelet could go all the way through the wax seal, the leather and the fabric, and still have enough space to crunch around and hold it in place. So that we've got that acts as a disc on the front that we can then use as our closure. So a bit of baker's twine, tying that around the book to create the closure. It's so small, this book, that I don't want anything kind of big and chunky. I mean, it is quite big and chunky, but in a spooky way, but I don't want anything that's difficult to use. And then just thinking about that baker's twine just kind of flapping around a little bit, I thought it would benefit from something heavy just to weigh it down. So I've got this little feather charm here that I just tied onto the end. So that again adds to the spookiness, but also the functionality of it. So here it is. I love this. I have so enjoyed making it. And the kit totally inspired me. I didn't really know what I was doing when I sat down. I just thought, I'm gonna make a little mini spooky book. So here it is. Basil's feather, thank you, Basil. And as you can see, as you go through, there's that kind of repetition which brings everything together. The repetition of the different things, so multiple belly bands, there's always a circular kind of window at the beginning of every couple of pages, a couple of those little Tim Holtz clips there, using the same ink colours all the way through, using those snippets all the way through, just creating those really teeny tiny little kind of journaling spaces, and it's just so fun. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this come together. I hope you've been inspired to create something miniature yourself. I will put the links to Michelle's kits below. I'll put the links to the wax melt thing and the digitals that I've likely used. The acetates that I have used that are pre-printed, again, they've just come from Etsy. I'll try and see if I can find them, but they were ones that are in my stash that have been there for years. But if you just type in printed acetates into Etsy, you'll get lots of different options that will fit your project as well. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I will look forward to seeing you for another video tutorial soon.